I remembered this time. I remembered to record. I always forget. All right, guys. So for those, I see some new faces. I see some old faces. So I'm pumped. Glad to see you guys coming around, and glad to see we're bringing in some new folks. So just real quick intro, why we're all here, right? This is a $1 million upside Zoom. We do this every single Friday, noon Central Time. Guys, the whole point, the whole goal of this Zoom, of this community, is to just provide a resource for everybody, right? We need to be putting out educational content for others. That way they can learn and get better and grow from this stuff, as well as make connections, right? As you guys know, and you probably heard me say this many, many times, the whole fruit of your business comes from the connections that you make within these Zooms, in person, just meeting people. It's all about the relationships. You can go out and learn all this knowledge, but it's truly about the relationships. So I'm just excited that each of you guys keep coming back to learn more, hang out with us, and keep bringing around your friends. So without further ado, guys, I'm gonna hand it over to Jada to introduce our guest for the day, and I'll get ready. It's gonna be a good one.
So today we have Nate Dodson. I actually met him through Tim Mai and Tim Mai Zooms. They were he was talking with Cornelius. Don't necessarily know his last name, so look up Cornelius. But they were talking about crowdfunding and how to syndicate with 501 or not 501 506Cs, 506Bs, and utilizing crowd funds. I was thinking of my mom's nonprofit. But anyways, enough of me talking. This is Nate Dodson. Please introduce yourself. You are so interesting.
Sounds good. And thanks for having me today. I love is it this one or 501c? No, that's a nonprofit regulation. I'm the principal attorney at Crowdfunding Lawyers. So when it comes to raising capital, doing real estate deals, working with investors, and frankly, making investments, that's a lot of what I focus on. And so I know there's kind of a mix of people that are here and joining. And thank you so much for everybody that is in attendance. So I'm going to just kind of talk about some really high level things. And what I love way more than just doing a presentation is uh, actually talking to people. So I'm going to bring up subjects. I'm going to kind of talk through not only kind of my experience and background and how it really works in the real world, the opportunities that are there, but I really want to know your questions too. So please raise your hand. I don't care where I'm at. We'll just go right to you. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about my background. As the principal attorney at Crowdfunding Lawyers, we're actually one of the largest multifamily real estate one-stop shop law firms in the country. 2023, we did a 220 or so multifamily transactions representing the purchase, the sale, the financing, and the syndications, plus about 100 more that we were just working with the investor side of these real estate deals. So one of the few firms that does it coast to coast. We kind of have our strategies and how to make it all happen. But even before I was ever part of Crowdfunding Lawyers, bought it COVID special in 2020. I've been a stockbroker. I've been part of GP groups that we've bought over 4,000 multifamily units. And just kind of am very used to working with investors. And that's why I'm here today. And just to kind of start out with, I know as y'all are out there kind of just trying to make deals happen, inevitably what happens is you're talking to your friends and your family and saying, hey, I'm trying to get this real estate deal to happen. You know, I've got a closing date, I got under contract, maybe I put $5,000 down. Now I need the rest of the money and I got to make it happen quickly. And, you know, if you are asking people for money and it's just kind of, just sit back. You're going to make some profits. You don't got to do anything. I'm going to buy the real estate. I'm going to manage the real estate. I'm going to send some of those profits back to you. And of course, you got to pay yourself too. That's a security. That's creating an investment. And there are a ton of regulations surrounding that. And I know it comes up all the time. People say, well, I'm not doing a securities investment. I'm not doing an investment. I'm doing a joint venture. And I love to kind of just jump out and give you my big, like, blaring warning of there's really no such thing as a joint venture. It's not a type of entity. It's not really a type of structure. It is a contractual relationship that, under the eyes of the law, it is a general partnership. Now, LLCs, limited liability companies. Corporations are limited liability corporations. Limited partnerships have limited liability for partners. A general partnership, everybody is 100% responsible for anything that goes wrong. So when somebody says, hey, we're just doing this as a joint venture, that's where I love to scream loud and clear, no, don't do it. Because if there's ever a problem at the property, a breach of a vendor agreement, somebody slips and falls, God forbid there's a death, and these things really happen. I've got a great story about one. I'll tell you about it. A horribly entertaining story. But anything that happens at the property, everybody that is involved with the joint venture is 100% responsible. Don't care if you own 1% of a joint venture, you're still 100% liable for any of the debts, problems, and issues of that joint venture. So I just kind of want to throw that out, you know. And, you know, I love that y'all are out there. Some people are just interested in doing investing. Some people are interested in, you know, making it happen as a general partner, a sponsor, a manager, call it a whole bunch of different things. But at the end of the day, you're an active real estate investor, actually managing the properties, doing the flips, buying the multifamily, getting the sub twos. And when you're doing that, so just speaking to the active real estate investors, you know, one of the biggest things is, yeah, if you're raising capital from passive people, there's a ton of rules around that. What needs to be disclosed, how you need to do it. And if you go out and you just start asking everybody for money, there's a massive amount of risk and liabilities there. You know, not like Bernie Madoff, you go to prison, but at the lowest level, you may be guaranteeing the investor's money. Anything goes wrong, you got to pay them back. You got to give them an interest rate return. Court-ordered interest rate is like 6% on their money that they lose. It gets a little bit worse. Hey, you mismanaged, you misled, you lied to an investor about a deal. You can own 3 times the loss to the investor. You know, or you're Bernie Madoff and you go to prison. That's like the worst case scenario. But I do have some guys that I told them, hey, this is a security. You really need to be doing these things. And they didn't listen to me. They actually found another attorney that gave them a legal opinion that, no, you're fine. You don't need to do all this stuff. I got to, unfortunately, testify against them for the FBI and the SEC. And they got 80 years to life for listening to the wrong attorney. I just want to emphasize, if you're working with investors, make sure you're working with an attorney that knows what they're doing. Now, as long as you do everything right, things go wrong, problems happen. There are losses. That's okay. There is always risk in investing. It's just that's part of the investing. You get the upside, you also take the risk of the downside. It's the risk versus return. The higher the risk, the higher the return should be. If you're buying a stabilized, cash flowing piece of real estate, multifamily, commercial, or whatever, you're generally getting a lower annual return when compared to, hey, we're going to buy this dilapidated property, reposition, rehab, fix it up, and resell or lease it out. Yeah, you can buy it for a whole lot less, but it actually is a higher risk. And equally, if you're on the investor side, you better be expecting a higher reward. If somebody's doing a ground up development, hey, I'm just buying this raw land and we're going to build this, whatever it may be. That's even higher risk. You better have a higher return. We'll see things with that, like, ground up development. Maybe people are expecting a 20% annual return. If it's a larger rehab reposition project, anywhere from 15 to 18% returns is kind of a sweet spot. More the stabilized deals of, hey, you're just expecting that mailbox money. It's more of a 9 to 13, 14% return. Anywhere in there, it kind of works. And so that's kind of speaking to the guys that are trying to put together the deals, as well as the investors if you're looking at deals. But at the end of the day, one of the most important things for everybody to do is to do their due diligence. What due diligence means is, hey, know what you're getting yourself into. If you're that active real estate investor, looking at leases, looking at the financials, the rent rolls, the tax statements, having your attorney working with title, looking at what's been recorded against the land already. You don't want to find out that somebody else actually has a claim to the land that you think you're buying, or you have some plans for that now all of a sudden you can't even do. We've gotten into deals where, have had to help people back out of them because they've found like old 100-year-old like gas pipes underneath the land, making development impossible and an environmental nightmare. But it's situations like that you really have to be careful for, because you may get into a deal and not even know how to get yourself out of it. One of the most interesting stories that I love sharing, even with the best of due diligence, sometimes it's impossible to recognize all of the risks. We had one client that was just doing fix and flips. He was a wholesaler. He'd be buying a contract, selling a contract. Sometimes he'd close, fix, resell, was always trying to get in and out within 3 months. He bought this one property and started doing the rehab, tore out this fountain that was sitting in the backyard, and actually came across a dead body in the cement, in the fountain, in the backyard.
Wow.
He's like, what? I don't even know what to do about this. Now, here's where it gets extra crazy. Of course, it goes to the morgue. The police are called. They run their DNA. It turns out it was the owner of the property. So this is where the story gets like insanely complicated, because what it turned out is this owner took in a runaway. Runaway murders the guy, builds this fountain in the backyard, puts the owner in the fountain, and then manages to sell the property by faking the deed, getting title to sign off on it. And everything looked legit. And there was actually title insurance with everything. But it wasn't good title at the end of the day, because, it wasn't this owner that actually sold the property. Mm-hmm. It turned out to be a massive lawsuit, because the title company is like, it went through multiple sales before anybody actually found out what was going on. So it's like a claim against a title company, against a title company, against a title company, before they actually got to the title company that made the biggest mistakes. one of the most interesting situations that I've ever been in.
That's insane.
But oh yeah. And I mean, it was in the news. I mean, it was craziness. But it happens. And you know what? The guy that bought it, like, there is nothing he could have done to know or figure out that there was this problem from multiple transactions ago.
Yeah.
I use this as an example of, even with the best of due diligence, there is always risk in investing and in real estate. But at the end of the day, you got to take the most amount of time to make sure that you're doing everything right.
Man, what a wild story. And I'm assuming that was not the story that you were referring to, or is that so you have multiple stories of stuff like that?
I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I started my first law firm in Las Vegas. I became the literal pro of scams and shady deals. I mean, it's what was running around in Vegas. Um, so actually, I mean, it's been really interesting because I've testified multiple times as an attorney, as a knowledgeable person, as an expert witness for the FBI and SEC over the years, mainly because there's been 4 or 5 times, specifically when I was living in Vegas,
Mm.
that I tell people you can't do this. Or like, if we're seeing something that's scammy or our clients are scammy, we're supposed to do it and, laugh, attorney ethics. What we're ethically supposed to do is called a noisy withdrawal. I'm out of here. Good luck, no thanks, goodbye. I've had to do that quite a few times. I haven't had to do that since I lived in Vegas, but you know what? It happened a lot. To this day, I will not do, and this is for you investors out there, I will never do a mine deal. Like, I'm going to get gold, or I'm going to get silver, or I'm going to get whatever out of mines. So many of them are shady. I also never do oil and gas opportunities. What has been a symptom of, or a problem, or just an illness of the industry, are shady operators that will buy some rights, mineral rights to land. Maybe they call it wildcatting, where you're just drilling holes looking for oil and gas. Buy it for $1 million, sell it to investors for $5 million. Mark up hey, we expect you to make so much money because, and every time this is going to be the hole that's going to make you a millionaire. And I've seen so many problems over the years that mines and oil and gas are the areas that we just don't touch as a firm. And now it's been 20 years of nope, not touching that stuff.
It's funny, I
But
actually had someone trying to sell me on an oil and gas investment like a month ago, 2 months ago. I was like, man, honestly, I just don't really know anything about that. I'm just gonna stick to real estate. There's so much diversity with just real estate alone that I feel you don't really even need to venture out. I mean, it's just my personal preference. It sounds like yours as well. But man, you dropped a lot there. Let's go back and I guess extract some of that. So what made you go the attorney route? Were you already investing into multifamily prior to that, or were you already an attorney prior to going into investing? How did that, you know, synergy happen?
um, interestingly enough, it was the internet bubble bursting back around 2000. I was a stockbroker in Austin before that time, and Austin was kind of the Texas tech focused. Dell was there. There were a bunch of startups there. Everybody was doing internet deals. And being a stockbroker, I was just pitching tech all day long. And then when the internet bubble burst, my clients lost everything and had to have that reflective moment of, well, it's time for a career change. I know attorneys make a good living. They make a lot of money. I'll go be an attorney. I actually applied for one law school, and it was the University of San Diego, primarily because I went out there, and if you've ever been to San Diego, it's just a beautiful, wonderful place to be. And I did that same as so many people have done, like, what's it going to take for me to just come out here? So I ended up going to the University of San Diego School of Law, and that was my law school experience. Kind of got through that. I actually didn't go be a lawyer right away again. I went and worked with a insurance company. I was a sales consultant for insurance brokers. And kind of the reasoning is like I knew how to sell investors. I knew how to work with investors. Now I was teaching people how to sell, how to market, and how to work with their investors, their insurance buyers. At some point, you get this guilty pang of, I did all this schooling, I incurred all this debt, I went through all of this. I guess I'm going to be an attorney. And that's when I moved out to Vegas because it was the wild, wild west at the time. They didn't even have a law school in Nevada when I started practicing in Nevada.
Oh my gosh.
So UNLV started their law school pretty soon after I moved out there. But literally, they're just not in the entire state. All the California attorneys would go out there because I never went on a job interview without getting offered a job. It was great. But really the value that I was bringing to the clients, and I only worked for another firm for maybe a year before I was like, I'm bringing so much business to the table, I'm going to go start my own thing. But the value that I brought was I was helping my clients who were active investors, doing the real estate deals, doing their business startups, trying to create their investment funds or investment advisors. I became a compliance officer for probably a dozen different registered investment advisors while I was out there. I could help people market best practices with working with investors, selling more investors. So that's really how I started to build my business in Las Vegas. Then if you've been around for long enough, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, there was this horrible, horrible Great Recession. And everything in Las Vegas went belly up across the board. I lived on a cul-de-sac with 6 homes. We were the only home that was occupied because everybody else just walked away. Every investor that invested in any project that I worked on at that point lost all of their investments. Anybody that ever says real estate only goes up is lying. It's been the case for the last decade. But sometimes there's a reckoning and prices can drop by a lot. It went down about 60% in Las Vegas. The things to learn and live through. But I always had a great name in the investment world. So instead of crying about it or going and doing bankruptcy, literally all of my competitors just went and started doing bankruptcies. That was where the business was. I started working with capital groups all around the country, and I just kind of had my normal stops where I'd go to. And while doing that, really we were finding, oh my God, you can get into this multifamily for next to nothing. I mean, we're buying properties for $2-3 million that sold out of most of it from 2021 through 2022, just because the market was so hot. Those $3 million properties were selling for $20 million. It was just that lucky of timing. So it was during that time period that I was involved with about 3,000 unit acquisitions. I continued to work as part of GP groups, and I'm an attorney and I'm a sales guy. So I would get in there and I was just helping guys learn how to get in there, actually raising the capital, doing it legally. And then my role of being the legal consigliere as well. Kind of kept that up until 2015. That's where we hit about 4,000 units between all these different groups that I was working on with. And you know, that was a wonderful time. And then it was time to simplify life. I just focused on my law firm. I acquired a few other law firms, including Crowdfunding Lawyers in 2020. And then, like I said, I sold out of everything, all of these units, except for a couple of properties from 2021, 2022. And it was just lucky timing because 2023 comes around and it's been a tougher market to get things done. I love to quote the number of deals that we did in 2022 because the reality is we're down 50% over the past year. Kind of to explain, like, we get a lot of insight on where people are doing deals, how people are doing deals, what areas people are doing deals at, and how markets are transitioning, only because we've done so many investment opportunities now and continuously. And what we've seen and have been experiencing is everybody that's in multifamily, very specifically, if they bought before 2021, they're all sitting on 2, 3, 4% loans. And the way to save money when you're getting great gains is they call it a 1031 exchange. You can sell one property, and as long as you buy another property within the next 6 months, and there's a lot of process in between it, you can defer your taxes. You don't pay your capital gains. It goes on to the next property. Eventually, because you can keep 1031 exchanging from property to property by property. You can do it for decades. You can do it for generations. You can never pay taxes. Ideally, and this is kind of something that for y'all, that your parents are into the investing deals and have been doing real estate for, hey, my family's been in real estate forever. Whenever your parents pass away, if they've been 1031 exchanging throughout their entire life, and then they die, a horrible thing to think about, but they pass away, they call it a stepped up basis. They actually wipe out all of the taxes that would have ever been due, and then you inherit all the real estate without owing anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like the secret sauce of how the rich get richer and stay rich generation by generation by generation. And it comes down to real estate and knowing how to defer taxes, pass it on to your kids, and just keep it going through the years and through the generations. This is one of the most amazing areas to invest in, not just because of the today opportunities, but because of the lifetime opportunities. And I'm sure you've heard and everybody hears, well, real estate's the one thing that there's not just ever going to be more of. There's a lot of truth to that. But it's also the case that there are so many tax favorable laws that go right along with real estate that it truly is one of the best, greatest asset classes and areas to be investing in passively, actively, professionally. It doesn't really matter. This is the space to invest your time, invest your education, and invest your dollars in to figure out. At least that's my whatever worth 2 cents.
Yeah, no, it's very, very I've definitely heard, similar stuff, and it's one of the reasons I love real estate is all of the benefits that come along with it. And when I first started, what I did is I went on YouTube and I said, how do we become a millionaire? Me and my wife did this. And everything just kept pointing back to real estate. And so we were like, okay, well, real estate, let's figure out how to do that, right? And ultimately it led us into wholesaling, and that's how our journey began. But it said that the world, or the biggest amount of millionaires in one industry, is by far real estate. And the reason is exactly what you were just saying, right? It has all of those tax benefits. So in addition to making a bunch of money and selling for huge profits, they're able to hold those profits without getting rid of a lot of it, right? And you're able to defer even taxes from other businesses as well with your tax incentives from your real estate. There's definitely a lot of pros with that. um, I see Jennifer has a question, and so I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we'll open it up for everybody. That way, you guys can, get as much value and kind of steer the conversation the way that y'all want to. What I will say is, you obviously have a lot of experience, right, in multiple different things. You have your attorney business, you have your crowdfunding, which it does a bunch of other things within that one business. And you also talked about how you're a one-stop shop for a lot of investors as well as other people looking to get into the space, because you've done different areas, not just the attorney side, but you've done the other sides as well. So what is the one thing that you would say that you could help people the most with, either utilizing your services or just some of the experiences that you've gone through, whether they're wanting to passively invest or actively invest? What is one thing that you add to that? And then we'll open up the floor.
If I've got to do one thing, because you named two different people, the passive investors and the active investors. Passive investors, make sure that you are protecting your assets, leveraging LLCs, limited partnerships, trusts, how to make sure that, God forbid, something bad happens, you're protected. That's on the passive side, most important thing there. On the active investor side, one of my favorite things, and I've done this probably 100 years over the decades, is helping people that just start with an idea, that napkin business plan of this is what I'm trying to accomplish, and building out that plan of, okay, take it step by step, and you follow this course, and you too can be that multimillionaire as well. I've got some of the same clients that I've been working with for a dozen plus years, and it's been amazing seeing them go from that first deal. And they've got to have the opportunity or the ability to work with investors, working with OPM, other people's money, because that's how you leverage your returns. That's how you leverage what you can do. But helping those people that have the drive, the capability, and the interest of really becoming that multi-millionaire, that's the best thing and the most wonderful thing that we get to bring to the table for the active investors.
Love that.
Good answer.
It's a good answer.
Well, thank you.
All right, guys, now is the opportunity for whatever questions that y'all have that we didn't ask or Nate didn't say. Feel free to hit the hand raise button and we'll pull you up here. Since I have Jennifer's question here in the chat, I'll just read it out and see what you think here, Nate. Jennifer says, when Cornelius announced his crowdfunding platform, I was interested in doing a fund to be able to move fast on local projects. However, he said that to do crowdfunding, you have to have the asset identified first. How would you advise someone to be able to crowdfund type raise with non-accredited investors, or is it just a no-go?
There's a number of different strategies, and the biggest question is, and I'll answer it a few different ways, Jennifer, if you have, the big question is, how long do you have between I know what I want to buy and a closing date? And that can vary greatly. Hey, I'm trying to buy this multifamily apartment. Maybe it's 3 months to get from contract to closing date. Or if it's, I'm trying to go to auction, you don't know the asset or what's going to be until you get awarded the piece. And maybe you got the asset, and maybe you have to pay within 2 days, 10 days, or within the month. So there's a massive difference in based on the type of activity or real estate that you're trying to buy. I would say, and I'll tell you a secret strategy that I just coached a client on. Nobody else is talking about this, but it works if you're trying to be busy in like the tax liens auctions, or you're trying to buy real estate auctions. The fact is, with Regulation CF, you do have to identify specifically what property it is before you start offering it to all of the non-accredited investors. You can, underneath Regulation D, not have to identify the property. And just to kind of like, when we do crowdfunding, there's really two primary laws that most people are relying on. One is Regulation D, Rule 506C. You'll hear 506C, it comes up a lot. You can only accept accredited investor. An accredited investor is somebody that's a millionaire, or they are making at least $200,000 per year, last couple of years expected to, or with their spouse, $300,000 a year. You can only accept verified accredited investors. But you don't have to tell them what you're buying, you just have to get them sold on it. Then you have Regulation CF, also referred to as Regulation Crowdfunding. With that, you can accept everybody in America as long as they are 18 years old or older as an investor. There's some other requirements, like it has to be through a crowdfunding portal. There's limitations on how much people can invest, and you can only raise up to $5 million a year. You can do $5 million every year, but that's your limitation. So here's a secret strategy that I put together with this one client based on they were buying properties out of auction. And they knew how to raise capital. They're raising $1 million, give or take, only from accredited investors. Simultaneously, we're getting everything teed up and ready with their regulation crowdfunding offering. Now they're closing on the assets with the Regulation D 506C money. And then they're basically selling them to a different class, which is going to be offered through Regulation CF. So it's, and then the Regulation CF guys that now you can bring in anybody, they recycle and pay back the Reg D investors. So the same money gets recycled between all of the auctions. And then the Regulation CF investors, they're like buying tranches of properties as they, once you acquire them, now you can identify them, now you can sell them through Reg CF. So the best way to make it all happen is you actually have multiple investment offers that are out there, and then it works as a cyclical thing. We used to do this all the time with hard money lenders. One of the secrets of hard money loans is, you know, it's great that they can make a whole bunch of loans and at the time it was like 8-9%. That would pay out an okay return to the investors, but there wasn't a lot of money there. What they figured out they could do is they have their couple $1 million, they loan out a couple $1 million, then they sell it to note buyers. They keep a strip, maybe they made a 9% loan and they sold it at 7%. So they were keeping a few percentages and then recycling the money over and over and over, every time keeping a couple percent each way. Using that type of a concept with real estate, which is exactly what I was telling this client, hey, here's the strategy that you can overcome this. You got to identify the property issue. And so to Jennifer, auction or waiting for the specific type of property to come up for sale and ready when it does, it's a matter of timing. And so if it's an auction or you're closing within 30 days, it's a single family home or it's a smaller piece of property, the best way to do it is to do one of these Regulation D where it is accredited investors and then repackage the properties and now offer them to the regulation crowdfunding investors. But it requires some millionaire investors, and then you resell it to everybody in America. If you are getting into transactions that it's more of a 60-day closing timeline or more, then there's plenty of time to identify the property, get all the documents ready, identified. Maybe you even have a fund that we call it a series offering, where you just create different classes for different assets, different properties. Then you're identifying it. There's still plenty of time to bring in the investors to make it all happen. Anybody that actually is interested in crowdfunding and bringing investments in from the masses and advertising, I'll answer you as well, Jennifer. One of the biggest, most important things to do is to create your crowd. You need to have an audience that knows, likes, trusts you. Awareness. Doing calls like this, networking in the world, being active on social media. These are the types of activities that, if you're out there trying to raise capital, will hyper help you when it is time to bring in the capital to make it all happen. And Jennifer, sounds pretty expensive and a bit complex for smaller transactions. Just to kind of respond to that, the way that we'll set it up regularly, and we do charge something up front. Ultimately, it is the company's responsibility to pay for. Just to overshare, we do charge around $15,000 to set up one of those types of plans. You're not going to find it any more cheap out there with anybody ever. And then it costs just a couple of $1,000s every time you want to add on an extra tranche or class for the different properties. So even if you are just buying single family homes, there's an upfront expense to get it all moving forward. That's always the case. It's the company's responsibility to pay for it. So ultimately, you reimburse yourself back for those expenses. And then you're just allocating a few $1,000s every time you're adding properties. So it's really not that big of a long-term expense. But it's definitely a way that, to get started, get moving. We do these with single family homes through Reg CF all the time. We'll work with, the really complicating factor, Jennifer, is the auction and just the time frame. If you can get something under contract where you have a few months to bring in the capital, even if it's a month, you can get all the paperwork ready. You can get everything filed as needed. You can start raising capital. Once you have the structure set up, within about a week, it's not really that big of a deal. You can move fast once you have everything together. But the real secret of it is you have to have, and that's why I was emphasizing your audience and the people that are listening. Because you can start really early talking about, hey, I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to do that. It's called testing the waters. You got to find out if investors are actually even interested in what you're looking to bring to the table. So there are certain disclaimers that are required. If you email me, and I'll put my email into the chat, I'm happy to share it with anybody that reaches out. And there are disclaimers that you have to include with with any of these testing the waters communications that you do. But basically, all you're doing is saying, hey, I'm interested in putting together a deal for these assets. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not accepting money. I'm still working on the deal. I'm just trying to gauge some interest. And that's a communication. You can start that day one. You don't have to wait for anything to happen. You just want to kind of make your list of, well, these are the guys that are probably going to be interested in investing. And so once you know you're moving forward with it, once you know what you're doing, you've already got your list that you're reaching out to specifically to say, hey, it's time. I'm doing this deal now. Please invest. Honestly, when it comes to building that audience and building that crowd, I wouldn't even wait. Announce to the world, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to do. If you're interested in becoming involved, just let me know. Start building your list and building your audience. And you know what? As people are showing interest, and as you have a community here that's all interested in real estate, you're all coming across articles, information, market updates, industry specific, real estate in general, interest rates, whatever it is. Always be sharing that, always be providing that value to the people that will listen, because those people that will listen and benefit from that will ultimately be your investors as well.
Man, I'm hearing a common theme. You know what that theme is? It's all about the relationships.
Mhm.
You nailed it.
Man, you're gonna hear that from everybody because it's so true. I mean, everything you said was spot on. I mean, the people that have invested with us are people that have come to these Zooms. They've seen what we're doing. They see the value that we're trying to give. Or it's people that we've met in person and they saw who we are as people and they felt how we were genuine or trusting, they trusted us. So it truly is about just building that relationship and getting out there, putting yourself out there, right? It's uncomfortable in the beginning, but then you're just like, it's another day, right? You just kind of get used to it. So definitely got to be putting yourselves out there. If this is something that you're truly trying to do on the active side, you really do need to utilize social media, utilize these networking Zooms and rooms, and just be a force out there, right? Just throw yourself out there. Who cares what people think? You're going to attract the people that you're looking for. You're going to attract the people that relate to you. Honestly.
You
Anybody
nailed
else
it.
have a question? Nobody else? I mean, this is an awesome opportunity. While we're waiting, I'll ask a question that I have. So, Nate, tell me what you think about debt funds versus any other syndication or a crowd fund or anything like that. Because what I've been hearing a lot is that people are putting together debt funds. They will then utilize those funds to purchase the property. And then instead of having shared equity of investors in that deal, they are essentially paying off a loan at that point. What are the pros? What are the cons of doing it that way?
Happy to share the good, bad, and the ugly.
I love it.
Uh, what we're talking about is debt versus equity. Equity referring to that profit. You get all the upside. With the debt, you're in a more secured position, but generally you just get a percentage interest rate return. Great if you have a highly cash flowing, highly profitable, buying a stabilized property. If you're going into a more high risk asset, or if you're trying to do ground up construction, a repositioning, something that, hey, you may not have enough money, you still have those interest expenses. And now you can go in default if you can't make those debt fund payments. That's the biggest risk. The ugly of debt funds is that it's debt. If you're going to buy real estate and now you're going to talk to a lender and they're going to ask, every lender asks this, what's your debt to equity ratio? And if your answer is, well, I got zero equity because it's all debt, the lenders are going to say, yeah, we need to see that skin in the game. We need some equity. Going out there nowadays, we're seeing 65% to 75% debt to equity ranges. With a debt fund being the financing side, it ain't there. And then the upside of doing a debt fund, if you are working with something that's highly profitable, you keep the profit. You're just paying off the debt. Where we'll see this a lot is where there's a massive reposition. You're able to buy an asset at 50% of the value and expect to be able to refinance it in the next 12, 18, 24 months. Once you refinance it, pay off the debt holders, and now you've got that asset and you just own 100% of it. That's where we see that most often. But there's a middle ground that is really the way to do it. I would honestly never recommend doing a debt fund. I would recommend doing a preferred equity fund. Like a debt fund, you are just paying a percentage rate to the investors. But as preferred equity, when the lenders are asking about the debt to equity ratio, you can still claim it as equity. And if you do well with the property, you can still just pay the investors off and get rid of them, because all they're receiving is that percentage return. The best part of all of it is, unlike a debt, you can't default on a preferred return. So things don't go as planned. You aren't able to make the payments. Generally, those amounts due will add up and just accrue. So when there is the opportunity to pay it, you get caught up, you pay everything out to the investors. No harm, no foul. A debt fund versus a preferred equity fund is, I would go this direction 100% of the time. But I understand why some people do debt funds.
That's a interesting perspective. I like it. Thanks for sharing that, because I can't tell you how many people are telling me, oh, I've got a debt fund. We're gonna exact same strategy you just described. Yeah, we're gonna buy it, reposition the asset, refinance it out, pay back all of the people on the debt, and then go buy more. That's exactly what they're looking to do. So I like that. So
And those people just don't have the right attorneys.
yeah, I guess not. I should send them to you. So what about the preferred equity? What are potentially the pitfalls of a preferred equity fund? Uh, or is there any?
Depends on what you compare it to. A preferred equity fund compared to debt, 100% better to do the preferred equity. Preferred equity fund to a regular, just a equity fund. It depends on how good you are at sales. With a preferred equity fund, there's more prioritization to the investors. So it's a great sale of, before I make $1, you're already making 9% on your money. Yeah, if I make better than that, I'm going to keep that, but I'm prioritizing you for that 9%. Versus the equity fund, where you're saying, hey, I'm buying these properties and I'm expecting to get this 15, 18, 20% return. So there's kind of that, do you feel more comfortable selling the fixed return that's prioritized, or are you more comfortable selling that high return pro forma? We expect to blow it out the water. That's the real big difference, because I mean, it is, most equity funds that I see, people are estimating a 12 to 20% annualized return. The hard money funds may be 9 to 13%, but never more than that. What would you rather sell to an investor? The hope or less risk?
Like it. I like the way you explain it. It makes it very simple to digest. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna ask one last question. It is 1 o'clock already. I want to be respectful of your time. The preferred equity fund, are those investors also sharing the equity and receiving those same tax benefits as if it were a syndication or regular equity funds? Or
Generally not.
they're not entitled to those. So they're
They
it
can get some
almost
of it, but it's far more limited. They do
got
not get all of the benefit because they don't have all of the risk. You have to have the risk to have the benefit.
gotcha. Gotcha. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, I want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. You know, we told you it'd be an hour. So if you have any, like I said, shameless plugins, whatever you'd like to promote, what are you doing? Where can people reach you? I know you put in your website and your email. Is that the best way to get a hold of you? And is there anything that you've got ongoing you'd like to share about?
You know what? I'm nonstop putting out education stuff on social media. Check me out at Legal Nate at any of the different social media platforms. And like I said, I'm just nonstop, like trying. I do my own content. I do my own education. I try to put my own energy out there to the world. So check it out. If you actually have something going on, would love to help. Easiest thing is just email me, Nate@investmentlawyers.com, or you can always go to our website, crowdfundinglawyers.net. My email at Crowdfunding Lawyers kept going to spam. So I was like, I'm just going to go buy this other domain.
That happened to my email for a good time early on, and then I don't remember what I did to figure it out, but eventually it stopped doing that. I think it just realized that hey, this is an actual person after a while.
I'm still a robot apparently because they do not like my Crowdfunding Lawyers email.
Uh, maybe it just sounds spammy. I don't know. Maybe they're just detecting. Maybe it sounds spammy. Awesome.
Could be.
Thank you so much, Nate. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was an absolute pleasure. Super excited to chat more about everything that we've got ongoing. I know Jada and I and a couple others. We're doing the Teen Millionaire Challenge. We're going to be doing a crowd fund with the teens there. So I'm super excited to bring further information about that and talk with you. I know pretty sure we have another Zoom with the teens. Am I right? Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Jada's on top of that, so that's her domain. So I'm excited. Let's reconvene then. Any last closing remarks before we end it with our Friday song?
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Great,
you.
great chatting it up, and hope everybody got value.
I love it. I love it. Thanks so much, Nate. We appreciate you coming out. I'm gonna go ahead and